A fresh new year has begun, and if you're setting new goals for your business, it's extremely difficult to reach them without the right people on your team. And ZipRecruiter has transformed how you go about finding the right people. ZipRecruiter posts your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards with just one click. Then ZipRecruiter actively looks for the most qualified candidates and invite them to apply. They even review every application to identify the top candidates, so you never miss a great match. That's why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other hiring sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on the right candidates finding you. It finds them. No wonder 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes and industries to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, my listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Stephen A. That's with a PH, not a V. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Stephen A. One more time to try it for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/Stephen A. with a PH, not a V.
Hey there, I'm a glue stick, so I have one job. I glue kid stuff. So sorry for being jealous of Geico, who does a ton more, like give you 24/7 access to thousands of licensed agents. And Geico has been around for over 75 years and has a 97% customer satisfaction rating. While I've just got mediocre adhesive skills, Geico also has an award-winning mobile app. Uh-oh, arts and crafts time. No eating the glue stick, Miss Lydia!
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more. This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Welcome to week 2 of the new edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you right here on ESPN Radio. As I love to do every weekday from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. 10 a.m. to noon, West Coast time, and everything in between in 250 plus markets across the United States of America, and of course on Sirius XM, ESPN Radio Channel 80. Number to call up as always is 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Got a jam-packed show coming your way today. I am coming at you live from Atlanta, Georgia, site of tonight's national championship game between the Georgia Bulldogs and the Crimson Tide from Alabama. Roll Tide! Obviously, you know who I'm picking to win tonight's game. We'll talk about that as the show progresses today. Of course, we will get into LaVar Ball and the news that he has made, talking about Luke Walton basically trying to get him fired. We will definitely talk about that. We will talk about the kind of position that he's put Lonzo Ball in, the kind of position he's put Magic Johnson in, and whether or not you agree with the president of the NBA Coaches Association, the one and only Rick Carlisle for the Dallas Mavericks, who spoke out adamantly, not just against LaVar Ball, but ESPN's coverage of LaVar Ball. We'll be touching on that as the show progresses today. Again, the number to call up is 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. We got some playoffs to talk about, though. NFL playoff action to talk about, because I'm here to tell you something. The New Orleans Saints may be the favorites to win it all. We have to come to that conclusion. Now that the Rams wet the bed and ultimately they ended up not doing anything that we expected them to do. Todd Gurley ran for 101 yards and just 14 carries. I don't know why he had just 14 carries. I really, really don't know. Pharaoh Cooper, who's an all-pro, by the way, on special teams, and deservedly so. You talk about a petrified puppy. I mean, that's how he looked. Bobbled 2 kickoffs or punt returns. Almost lost 2 more. He looked completely petrified. I mean, if there was ever a case where a guy looked like he should have been wearing a diaper because he was pooping in his pants, because he was petrified at the moment, it was him. Because he looked nothing like he has looked all season long. I respect him. He's an all-pro. He's gifted. Mad respect to him. But Saturday night, he looked petrified. It's just that simple. And as a result, what we have is a situation with New Orleans handling their business against Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers, with the Falcons taking out the Los Angeles Rams, We've got Atlanta going to Philadelphia next week. We've got New Orleans going to Minnesota next week. And I got news for you. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the NFC Championship was back in New Orleans, courtesy of the Saints hosting the Atlanta Falcons. It wouldn't surprise me. Because you got to show me, for me to believe that Case Keenum is going to beat Drew Brees. Now, obviously, it's the defense of Minnesota, which is big time, that would neutralize Drew Brees. Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, who got neutralized, by the way, running the football yesterday. But Michael Thomas is a stud. No wonder his Twitter handle is Can't Stop Mike. Michael Thomas is a bad somebody. And I don't know what else to say. I don't know what other superlatives to come up with about Drew Brees. He's just sensational. We're going to talk about Drew Brees, who threw for about 376 yards yesterday. Aaron Rodgers is a bad man. And we all know how great Tom Brady is. If we haven't been talking about Drew Brees enough, perhaps it's time. By the way, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. It's just important that we not forget the greatness of Drew Brees. It's time. This is a dude that can't run. I mean, to sit there and use his name and mobility in the same breath would be sacrilegious. But this dude is something to behold. We wish we could say the same for Cam Newton right now, but we can't. But yesterday wasn't his fault. I mean, Clay and everybody and Funches and everybody else, all they were doing was dropping this passage yesterday. That's all they were doing. Cam Newton did not play bad yesterday. It was not his fault that the Carolina Panthers lost. They were not catching passes. And they still put themselves in a position to win. By the way, the defense couldn't stop Drew Brees all night long. But when they needed a stop to give Cam Newton one last chance to drive this team downfield and make things happen, the defense did do it. Kuechly and the Thomas and the boys, they did do it. Meaning Kuechly and Davis, of course. They did it. But then Cam Newton had the ball, and in 3 of the last 4 plays, Cameron Jordan was all over him. All over him. And as a result, Carolina couldn't do but so much. Switching to the AFC side, it's a tough sell. It's a tough conversation to have. Because I'm not somebody that sits there. I'm not going to advocate the firing of Andy Reid. I like him too much. And he's a damn good coach. And even though he hasn't had great success in Kansas City, he still has more playoff victories, which is 1, since he arrived in Kansas City 5 years ago, than Marvin Lewis has had in Cincinnati in 15 years. So I'm not going to advocate, by any stretch of the imagination, that Andy Reid be gone. But a 21-3 halftime lead and you blow that? An 18-point halftime lead, you blow that? 78 teams in the history of the National Football League had an 18-point or bigger margin, bigger lead at halftime. Only 4 of them lost. And that was Andy Reid. He's one of them. Now, somewhere along the line, something's got to give in Kansas City. Somewhere along the line, something's got to give. You're Kansas City. You got problems with your defensive coordinator, Bob Sutton, who locals are calling to be fired. You got problems on your offensive line. You clearly need to move beyond Alex Smith and put Patrick Mahomes up in there. You got Britt Reed, Andy's son, who I think is doing some coaching on the offensive line. I'm sorry, excuse me. All of these things are happening under Andy Reid's watch. Something's got to be done. Because Kansas City is not going. Tennessee is going instead. All they're going to do is lose to Tom Brady in New England next week. Jacksonville and Buffalo, we saw how butt ugly that game was. No surprise there because Buffalo wasn't going to be able to score. Sorry, Tyrod Taylor, but the money you were looking for, you ain't going to get. Not when you end your postseason career in Buffalo by putting up 3 points in an entire playoff game. It's not going to happen. Even against an elite defense like Jacksonville, who I believe will have their comeuppance this Sunday when the Steelers avenge that 30-9 loss they suffered against Jacksonville last October 8th. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to discuss. I found myself incredibly disappointed with the Rams, though. McVay's my coach of the year. Gurley's a stud. Goff is no scrub. The defense showed up. Special teams derailed you. Turnovers derailed you. I just expected more. 74,000 people did show up to a game in L.A., by the way. That's newsworthy. That doesn't happen every day. It just doesn't. But that and then some is stuff to talk about. John Gruden getting $100 million. Nothing but the best to him. Love him. Good guy. Phenomenal football coach. Last 6 seasons coaching in the NFL, 45, 5, and 51. 2 playoff appearances. We lost both games. Don't coach for 10 years and come back and get $100 million. And from what I'm hearing, it's incentives in a contract that'll drive that $100 million to $120 million. Really? I mean, damn. ESPN, can I get a job on Monday Night Football, please? My future will be bright, too. Get me a job on Monday Night Football, pretty please, with sugar on top. I don't need to be John Gruden. I ain't qualified on that level. But if you put a John Gruden type of football man in there with a play-by-play guy, could I be that third wheel? Yes, I can. I'm politicking for the job. Because you get that kind of job security, please. 10 years out of the business, come back, get $100 million. Guaranteed. With incentives to jump it to 120. Only in America, y'all. Only in America. 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. I will get into all of that. Plus, I got to address this whole LaVar Ball situation. It is necessary. Make sure to tune in Sirius XM Channel 80. That's the ESPN channel on Sirius XM. Or the more than 250 plus markets across the United States of America that is now carrying the Stephen A. Smith Show. Check your local listings near you. Again, the number to call up is 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. LaVar Ball and what he has done and what he has caused is up next. Plus, you heard what I had to say about the NFL playoffs. Plus, Georgia, Alabama for the national championship tomorrow night. All of that is on the docket and then some. Lots to talk about. So needless to say, don't touch that dial. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here on ESPN Radio. Reminding you, our start of hour number 2, we'll have our resident NFL analyst extraordinaire, the one and only Ryan Clark, coming on the show with us to talk to us. Not just about these NFL playoffs, but I'll get his take for the national championship game tonight. He's an SEC guy, even though he went to LSU, and that they ain't playing in tonight's national championship game. That would be Georgia and Alabama. I'm coming at you live from Atlanta, Georgia, site of tonight's national championship game between the Alabama Crimson Tide and, of course, the Bulldogs from Georgia. I think it's going to be an epic matchup. I think it's going to be a little bit ugly, though. I think it's going to be a defensive battle. Kirby Smart and going up against Nick Saban. Assistants for Nick Saban are 0-11 going up against them, but few know him better than Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart worked for the man for 11 years. 11 years. He was the defensive coordinator and prepped with Nick Saban to win national titles. If anybody knows what Nick Saban is going to do, it's likely Kirby Smart. So I think that gives Georgia somewhat of an advantage over previous opponents who've been coached by a guy who's coached under Nick Saban, but I still don't think it'll be enough. I think Jalen Hurts can do some damage with his legs, if not his arm. I think Ridley will make some noise, and I think Alabama's defense will neutralize the running attack of Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, even though I think Jake Fromm is still going to have a good game. I think that he's not going to be some Deshaun Watson kind of performance, but I think Jake Fromm is going to put the world on notice that he's big time and he's coming, and he may have a very, very, very bright future on the next level. Number to call up, as always, is 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Got to switch to a particular subject that I must confess to you is a bit uncomfortable. Okay? There's no other way for me to say this. We heard what LaVar Ball had to say the other day about Luke Walton. Luke Walton is the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Luke Walton and the Los Angeles Lakers were recently on like a 9-game losing streak. Okay? And as a result, the Lakers have been taking some heat. We know that. But I do believe that what LaVar Ball had to say was beyond the pale. Obviously, he's got his children in Lithuania, LaMelo and LiAngelo, and ESPN and Jeff Goodman are over there reporting on the team. The subject somehow, while LaVar Ball is sitting down with Jeff Goodman, the subject turns to the Los Angeles Lakers and Luke Walton. And obviously it has to, because Luke Walton is the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. And the biggest reason that the Ball brand, the Big Baller brand, is relevant is because Lonzo plays for the Los Angeles Lakers. If it wasn't for that, they wouldn't be relevant. But LaVar Ball decides to go in. He accuses the Lakers coach Luke Walton of having lost his locker room. And he says, quote, "You can see they're not playing for Luke no more. Luke doesn't have control of the team no more. They don't want to play for him," LaVar Ball tells Jeff Goodman. He continues, "That's a good team. Nobody wants to play for him. I can see it. No high fives when they come out of the game. People don't know why they're in the game. He's too young. He's too young. He ain't connecting with them anymore. You can look at every player. He's not connecting with not one player." That's what LaVar Ball had to say. And when you look at it, what makes it uncomfortable is the position one could imagine it puts Lonzo Ball in. If you're Lonzo Ball, you don't need this. But more importantly than that, if you're a Laker teammate or Coach Luke Walton, you know, maybe you don't suspect this, but you know what it must take for you not to entertain the notion of what Lonzo Ball is going home and telling his daddy? I mean, it stands to reason that LaVar Ball just said it of his own accord, that he didn't need to be prompted. He didn't need to be told anything, because it's not like the kids tell him anything. He tells them. But one could easily surmise that LaVar Ball was told this by Lonzo, and he's just the one that's going to speak out about it. Anyway, no matter how you slice it, Mavericks coach Rick Carlisle obviously had something to say about it, because he's the president of the NBA Coaches Association. And he went off not just about LaVar Ball, but about ESPN. No, do we have that sound? Listen to Rick Carlisle talk about LaVar Ball's criticism of Luke Walton, and listen to him talk about ESPN. Take it away, Nuno.
Printing an article where the father of an NBA player has an opinion that is printed as anything like legitimate erodes trust. It erodes the trust that we've built with ESPN, and our coaches are upset because Luke Walton does not deserve that. To have to deal with these kinds of ignorant distractions, is deplorable. They should look at their sources and do a better job of determining whether they have any merit or any validity, or are they just blowhard loudmouths? That's what I'm saying. You got that?
In fairness to Rick Carlisle, just in the interest of full disclosure, Rick Carlisle and I spoke directly this morning. Rick Carlisle and I go back more than 20 years in my years of covering the NBA. I have profound respect for this man. Got a lot of love for him, too, because I know him on a personal level. He and I respectfully disagree on this. Reading the National Basketball Coaches Association statement on an article by Jeff Goodman on Coach Luke Walton and the Lakers, this is what Rick Carlisle and the Coaches Association had to say. ESPN and the Walt Disney Corporation have long served as a trusted partner of the NBA and the greater NBA family. NBA coaches have valued this relationship with ESPN. They have willingly contributed to the network's broadcast by participating in quote unquote wired segments during games and agreeing to meet with broadcasting crews in advance of games. These meetings provide crucial access and information that enhance the broadcast for viewers. This access has been granted because ESPN has always treated coaches fairly, objectively, and with respect. Yesterday's article by Jeff Goodman of ESPN.com regarding Luke Walton was a salacious, one-sided story lacking journalistic integrity. The article attacked Coach Walton on the basis of one person's unsubstantiated opinion. The story failed to provide quotes or perspectives from any players or from Lakers management, either named or unnamed, verifying the claims made in the story. The article lacks any of the basic fundamental benchmarks and standards of reliable journalism. It is reprehensible and insulting both to our coaches and to the standards of ESPN. Luke Walton is working to develop an improving young LA Lakers roster, which takes years. Luke is an excellent young coach who proved himself in 2015 when, in Steve Kerr's absence, he led the Golden State Warriors to a record of 24-0 to start the season, which has never been done. It is regrettable and troubling that ESPN was willing to provide a megaphone for a player's parent anytime he wishes to share his personal opinion. While the Coaches Association does not believe NBA coaches should be immune from criticism, the NBCA demands that ESPN and other network partners work harder to ensure a more objective and balanced account in their coverage. That was a statement from Rick Carlisle and the National Basketball Coaches Association. I respectfully disagree. I will explain why in detail in a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here on ESPN Radio, Sirius XM Channel 80, plus 250 plus markets across the United States of America. Check your local listings near you. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Getting a quote is easier than ever before. 888-729-3776 is 888-SAY-ESPN. That is the number to call up. Before I get to the calls, because we've got the lines packed. Remember, I'm in Atlanta for the national championship game tonight. Georgia Bulldogs, Alabama Crimson Tide, Nick Saban versus Kirby Smart, national championship on the line. Want to get back to the National Basketball Coaches Association's comments about Jeff Goodman's report on LaVar Ball and what he had to say about Luke Walton. He's young. Pretty much doesn't know what he's doing. He's lost the players, et cetera, et cetera. And Rick Carlisle and the NBA Players Association, to reiterate the quote that Rick Carlisle and the National Basketball Coaches Association, to highlight what they wanted to say. It says here, quote, yesterday's article by Jeff Goodman of ESPN.com regarding Luke Walton was a salacious, one-sided story lacking journalistic integrity. The article attacked Coach Walton on the basis of one person's unsubstantiated opinion. The story failed to provide quotes or perspective from any players and from Lakers management, either named or unnamed, verifying the claims made in the story. The article lacks any of the basic fundamental benchmarks and standards of reliable journalism. It is reprehensible and insulting both to our coaches and to the standards of ESPN. As I said before we went to break, it's a tough story for me to do because I've known Rick Carlisle for 20 years. I have profound respect for him. He's a champion as a coach. He's a great coach. Knows what he's doing. But he's wrong. First of all, as I said when I personally spoke to Rick Carlisle this morning, I totally understand his point. And the point that needs to be mentioned is that LaVar Ball has crossed the line. As far as I'm concerned, what LaVar Ball has done amounts to nothing short of betrayal. Betrayal to Magic Johnson. Betrayal to the Lakers organization. And yes, potentially betrayal to his own son. Because when you open your mouth the way he just opened his mouth about Luke Walton, it's not that Luke Walton doesn't deserve criticism. The Lakers were in the midst of a 9-game losing streak. They're tied for the worst record in the Western Conference. They're tied for the second worst record in the entire NBA with the Memphis Grizzlies. It's not that Luke Walton doesn't deserve criticism. And there is a question as to whether or not Luke Walton will be the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers after this season. Yeah, you may have started 24-0 in 2015 like Rick Carlisle accurately pointed out. But Steph Curry ain't on this team. Klay Thompson ain't on this team. Draymond Green ain't on this team. So it's a different ball game. Let's make sure we pay attention to that. But it goes a step further and a bit more deeper than that to address the National Basketball Coaches Association statement about quote-unquote journalistic integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, whether we like it or not, LaVar Ball is news. If LaVar Ball was making news before his son ever became an NBA player, then what the hell would stop making him news now? Lonzo Ball, for better or worse, is the number 2 overall pick of the Los Angeles Lakers. Your father commenting that the coach should be fired is news. Just because you don't like it, just because it's irresponsible and classless and low of LaVar Ball to do that doesn't mean it's not a headline. Now, if your son was playing in the NBDL, or the G League rather, you'd have a point. It's not news. But LaVar Ball's son is the number 2 overall pick in the NBA draft who happens to be playing for the Los Angeles Lakers. Who goes on the record, quote, and basically says, well, Luke Walton needs to go. That is a horrible thing to say. It is incredibly irresponsible of him to say it. It's wrong, in my opinion. But there's no denying that it's news, which is what I told Rick Carlisle. Now, Rick Carlisle labeled it ambulance chasing to some degree. I understand where he's coming from. Because LaVar Ball is the modern day version of a train wreck as it pertains to the sport of basketball. He has said outlandish things about everybody. His son would be better than Steph Curry. They'd be better right now if his son was the point guard of the Warriors instead of Steph Curry, even though they're the reigning defending champions. He'd beat Michael Jordan in a one-on-one. Charles Barkley, too. And oh, by the way, in this same statement, he articulated that LeBron James is definitely coming to L.A., and that all we need is LeBron James, Lonzo, and one of my other sons, LiAngelo. That's what he said. We all know how ridiculous and asinine that statement is. Of course he's wrong. But his son plays for the Lakers. And he's talking about the Lakers. So to act like that's something that can't be reported, that's wrong. And it's not just journalism, it's commentary. That's what we do. That's what all the networks do. So I respectfully submitted to Rick Carlisle privately, as I am doing now publicly, that he is wrong about that. It's not a crime to be wrong. I just think he's wrong about that. And in terms of, okay, the article attacked Coach Walton. No, the article did not. LaVar Ball attacked Luke Walton, not the article. There was not a comment in there from Jeff Goodman that was of a subjective variety co-signing anything that LaVar Ball said. The article specifically quoted LaVar Ball. That's it. That's all that happened. On the basis of one person's unsubstantiated opinion? That happens all the time. Somebody says something. They just make a blanket statement. They don't substantiate it with quote-unquote facts per se. Well, here's one. Lonzo's his son. Lonzo might leave and get on the phone with his daddy. Lonzo might have shown up for Thanksgiving. Lonzo might have been home around Christmas time. They might have had a conversation about Luke Walton. We don't know. But one can surmise. So that's another thing. It said the story failed to provide quotes or perspectives from any players or from Lakers management, either named or unnamed, verifying the claims made in the story. Verifying what claims? LaVar Ball thinks that Luke Walton can't coach. Where's the confirmation that's needed? That's his opinion. That's all. His son plays for the Lakers. That's his opinion. ESPN did report when Lakers brass wanted to talk to LaVar Ball about toning it down. Folks have reported how the weight of the big baller brand has worn so heavily on Lonzo and has made him a sympathetic figure because no one believes this is him. Everybody recognizes it's his daddy. But you got to say so. The article lacks any of the basic fundamental benchmarks and standards of reliable journalism. Quoting somebody directly, how much more reliable can you be? It is reprehensible and insulting both to our coaches and to the standards of ESPN. Rick Carlisle, with all due respect, taking it a bit personal. LaVar Ball is wrong and was classless. But it's his opinion. He's the father of the starting point guard for the Los Angeles Lakers, talking about the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Sir, that makes it news. It's neither reprehensible or insulting to the coaches. It's reprehensible and insulting that LaVar Ball would gumption up the nerve to say such a thing. Luke Walton has a chance to prove him wrong with at least 40 more games. Good luck with that. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Your phone calls and more before Ryan Clark comes up to start off hour number 2 about the NFL playoffs. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Get instant gold status at Shell. Join the Fuel Rewards program at fuelrewards.com/gold. 888-729-3776. 888-SAY-ESPN. Remember, hour number 2 is up next in a few minutes. We'll have Ryan Clark, our NFL analyst extraordinaire. He'll be on the line with us. Until then, and remember, we'll get into the NFL playoffs even more. We'll get into the national championship game tonight. But for the moment, anyway, we'll take a couple of calls about LaVar Ball. Let's go to Frederick in L.A. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Hey, what's going on, Stephen A? I was just wanted to say it didn't really shock me that you had issue with what Rick Carlisle said. Anytime someone says anything about the media, you kind of take it personally. I'm 100% on board with Rick Carlisle. Everything that
Stop right there. Give me one reason why I shouldn't hang up on you. Because here's my problem. How come I can't just feel the way because I feel that way? There's been plenty of times that I've undressed the media. I don't take a position just because I'm in the media. I take a position based on right and wrong. Everybody don't have a radio show, but I do. Everybody don't have First Take, but I do. I feel how I feel. Has nothing to do with the media. It has everything to do with what somebody's job description is and whether or not they live up to it. The job description of the media is not to determine what is news and what is not news based on what a coach likes or a subject likes. It's whether or not it's news. It's whether or not it resonates. Are you disputing that LaVar Ball talking about Luke Walton is news?
It's news because you guys have the camera and the microphone.
Stop. What are you talking about? LaVar Ball's son is the point guard of the Los Angeles Lakers. He thinks the man should be fired. If you were in the media, would you quote him saying that Luke Walton should be gone?
I probably would. But if I've been quoting him, I've quoted him saying he's better than Michael Jordan. I've quoted him saying Jello should go to the Lakers. I've been quoting him. We talked about you guys talked about him having issues with the youngest son's high school coach. Like everything he says is
okay. I got your point. Goodbye. Have a nice day. Because we got to go to break. But the point is this: LaVar Ball's relevant because his son's the starting point guard for the Lakers. He was determined to get his son to become a Laker, and he pulled it off. There's no denying that. There's a lot of stuff that ain't worth news about him. But talking about Luke Walton is. Hour number 2 up next.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.